Hello and welcome to another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. I am your anonymous GM and I am here to take you through another live sim. Tonight we're going to take a look at the games in play, we're going to take a look at some league rumors, and we're going to do our first segment of Ask the Anonymous GM. Thank you for those that have submitted questions for tonight's episode. First, taking a look at today's action, we have some early day baseball out on the East Coast with the Baltimore Orioles jumping out to an early lead against the Boston Red Sox. Trevor Bauer is struggling mightily to get any outs amongst the Orioles. It's been a tight series so far. Elsewhere in the American League East, we have Tampa Bay taking an early 2-0 lead on the Toronto Blue Jays. We have our favorite NL East rivalry, the New York Mets taking on the Atlanta Braves, where the Mets appear to be taking an early lead here in the third inning. Later today, we have the Chicago Cubs' Mark Sorensen taking on the Milwaukee Brewers' Madison Bumgarner. We have the Pittsburgh Pirates and Chris Scalise taking on the Diamondbacks' Michael Wacha. Later in the day in the National League, the Colorado Rockies' Orlando Garcia continue their series in Philadelphia against Brad Peacock. Jordan Zimmermann and the San Francisco Giants take on the red-hot Miami Marlins and Gustavo Gomez. The San Diego Padres have an afternoon game in St. Louis with Jake Ottorosi taking on Edwin Jackson, and the nightcap in the National League is the Texas Rangers in an interleague game against the Los Angeles Dodgers with Trevor Cahill taking on Phil Hughes. In the American League later today, we have the LA Angels taking on the Seattle Mariners. The two have split the first two games in this series. We have the Washington Nationals, Tyson Ross, taking on Chuck Baez and the New York Yankees. An AL Central battle between the Twins and the Tigers, Kevius Sampson and Taylor Scott. Another AL Central battle, Cleveland taking on Chicago, Justin Masterson against Gio Gonzalez. We have the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Kansas City Royals, Archie Bradley and Jordan Cote. And then our final game of the night, again in the American League West, the Houston Astros taking on the Oakland A's. That is Pat Crosby against Sonny Gray. It's been an interesting couple of weeks here in MLB Pro, most notably with some trade rumors that have been circulating amongst the league. One that perhaps has taken the most notice here the last couple of days is dealing with the New York Yankees. The Yankees are rumored to be shopping both Craig Kimbrell, closer who's out for the year, and hard-hitting third baseman Juan Francisco. Juan Francisco is the type of player who was the highly sought-after free agent, 2015 American League MVP, in which he hit 36 homers, 110 RBIs, had a WAR of 8.1. He joined the Yankees in 2017 and just hasn't quite been the same player since. That said, he has rebounded nicely this year. He's on pace to slug 29 homers, drive in 101 RBIs, all with the batting average above 270, which would put him at about a WAR of 5.5. The downside, of course, with Francisco is the mega contract he signed. He signed through the 2021 season and has continued to be owed over $100 million between now and the end of his contract. It raises the question, who can acquire Francisco? Will it be a team that's looking to win now, that has the financial flexibility to take on the majority of the contract? Will a team be looking to offload a contract of their own that maybe they're not pleased with? Or will it be a team that kind of sneaks out of nowhere to make a run at Francisco with the hopes that maybe the Yankees will eat a large portion of the salary? Frankly, I believe there are about 4 teams that make the most sense when it comes to Francisco. To me, it needs to be a team that can take on the majority of the contract. By doing so, I think the Yankees are going to have to obviously lower their expectations of what they can receive back for a player of that caliber. It's not going to be the 3 or 4 high-end prospects that I think he might have been worth back in the Toronto days. But the $100 million contract, a average defensive third baseman at best, and just the declining production the last year or so has it where teams are going to be scared off to make that commitment. That said, I think there are 2 American League frontrunners that are both capable of making a play for Francisco, and I'm going to start with the Seattle Mariners. There's been some speculation recently that Seattle is interested in moving one of either Felix Hernandez or Danny Hultzen. Felix is owed $17 million this year, $17 million next year, whereas Danny Hultzen is a free agent to be after this season, currently making $14 million, and he's reportedly asking for somewhere between 15 and 20 for a long-term extension. The Mariners are loaded at pitching, both in the major league roster and at the minor league level, with the likes of Justin Hooper and Carson Kelly right along the way to replace the likes of a Hultzen and or a Felix. Seattle's obviously battling with the Angels atop the American League West, an offense that has Julian Silva, the acquisition from Tampa Bay in the offseason, and potential AL MVP in Mark Baker. But outside of that, their offense at times leaves you wanting more. Third base has largely been a black hole for the Mariners this year, whether it be Will Middlebrooks or Garen Cecchini. If they were to add the likes of a Juan Francisco to step in and bat in front of Silva and Baker, not only would they have the pop in the lineup, but to go along with their pitching staff, the Mariners quickly become not only the likely favorite in the American League West, but the favorite potentially in all of baseball. What would they give up, though? In my mind, the deal that makes the most sense for both sides, and I'm not sure who says no to this, would be if Seattle was willing to part with the likes of Danny Hultzen, top 100 Baseball America prospect Dave Allen, a third baseman who isn't ready to help the Mariners now, and the likes of a Zach White, who they acquired in the offseason, is a prospect that can fill the void of losing a Dave Allen. And then you throw in either Joseph Musgrove or Kevin Comer, two 25-year-old starting pitchers at AAA. They're both having great seasons at AAA. And they can fit in the Yankees behind the likes of a Pat Swain and obviously a Kyle Cody. They give them depth. They give them options. And most importantly, they get out of Francisco's contract. Whether they'd be willing to then re-sign Hultzen would be a question mark. That they'd have a month and a half here to take offers on a Danny Hultzen and potentially shop him and pick up more prospects. But I think Seattle would be willing, if they could trade and be willing to give up a Hultzen or Hernandez, they could take on the contract of a Juan Francisco. If you throw the Mariners out, I think there's a second American League West team that could make a play at Francisco, and that'd be the Texas Rangers. The Rangers sit at 42-27. They've been right there, but they're playing third fiddle again to the Angels and Mariners. They were one of the most active teams in the offseason. They bring in Matt Wieters. They bring in Tadakuni Fujita from Toronto. They bring in Jonathan Broxton. They have the likes of an Andrew Hardy having a career year at third base. He's top 5 in the American League in on-base percentage. But is he someone they can trust all season long? Hardy doesn't have a career history of being an elite third baseman. And here's Texas. You got to make the run at that top spot in the American League West at some point. And this seems like a move that can get them over the hump. They might have to get creative a little bit. Financially, they'd have to take a risk, frankly. But Fujita hasn't really fit in Texas so far this season. His batting average in balls in play against him this year is at .375. It's over 100 points worse than last season. That said, he has a player option for next year at $23 million. If he accepts that player option, obviously the Yankees would be looking at, or whoever has Fujita, whether it be the Rangers or Yankees, would be looking at $23 million. But it's only one more year, whereas Francisco signed through 2021. So I think the Yankees maybe would be willing to take that risk of getting out of those extra couple of years. So the proposed deal in this case would be Juan Francisco Carlos Villanueva, a pitcher for the Yankees who's now coming out of their bullpen, currently has an ERA of 4.02 in 62 innings, a strikeout to walk ratio of just over 2.5 to 1. So you take Francisco and Villanueva and you trade them for Fujita, hope he declines the team option. Andrew Hardy, hope he continues this on-base streak. And one of either Kevin Flemmer, Julian Gompertz, or Durbin Feltman, all relief pitchers with high-end stuff, potential to be future closers down the line in New York. you're only getting one prospect in the deal, but Andrew Hardy has that ability to kind of, you never know with him. Maybe he is the real deal. So that's the two American League teams to me that stand out with Francisco. That said, I think there are also two teams in the National League. The first one, Yankee fans might not be happy to hear about. It comes in the fellow New York team, the New York Mets. Bruce Kersen has won 3 division titles with the Mets and has made 5 straight playoff appearances. What better way to bolster their chances for the postseason this season than by grabbing another key piece, and not just a key piece, but a key piece from the Yankees? Current third baseman Chad Lewis has a .381 on-base percentage, ranks just outside the top 10 in the National League. The Mets rank first in batting average, they rank first in on-base percentage, first in slugging percentage, yet they're 10th in runs scored in the National League. Would a power bat like Francisco fit better in the middle of the order than Lewis? It might. You have the likes of, obviously, of a Matt Dendecker. If you throw in Juan Francisco and you're able to solve the runs scored problem, the Mets separate themselves from the Atlanta Braves. The National League Central remains an utter mess. And then you have the National League West with several very strong teams. But if I'm the Mets, it's an interesting decision. And the Mets have a key piece that kind of makes financial sense a little bit, and that's Troy Tulowitzki. Troy Tulowitzki is no longer a major league player. That the past year and a half show that Tulo is done. He signed through 2019 guaranteed, but 2020 has an option year. It's $14 million, but it's not going to be picked up. But it's only a $4 million team buyout. So if I'm the Yankees, again, here's another option. You got to take on Tulo's contract, and because he isn't good at this point in his career, I think you're able to ask for some prospects at a higher level than you've been able to ask from either the Mariners or the Rangers. In this proposed deal, I'm looking at Juan Francisco for the more or less the contract of Troy Tulowitzki, along with the recent fourth round pick of the Mets, Trevor Larnach, a player who has shown an above-average contact skill, gap power, league average power, along with Baseball America Top 100 prospect before this season, Kyle Radatz. Radatz has shown an electric fastball, a well-above-average curveball. While there are some concerns with his control, he had shown brief improvements in his 2018 season before getting injured. In this, the Yankees, you suffer through the year and a half of Tulo, but you add a pitcher in Radatz who either comes back next year, sits in the bottom half of the rotation, and gives you the potential of a strikeout force, or you throw him in the bullpen. Again, the arm talent can't be questioned. And if the goal is simply to get out of Juan Francisco's contract, I think that's an option. The fourth team that I think makes the most sense, we're going to get into 2 dark horses, but there's a fourth team here. And I think it's a team that everyone kind of sees coming. It's the San Francisco Giants. The offseason obviously included the additions of Cameron Maybin, Matt Latos, Sergio Romo, Daniel Schlereth, Bob Carlisle. They were all brought in. Expectations in San Francisco were as high as anywhere before the season, really. That said, here they are. They're at 34-33. They're 4-7 in June. Things aren't quite clicking. That said, they do have the National League's 3rd best team ERA, the 2nd best opponent's batting average. They still have a rotation of Zach Greinke, Bryce Bandia, Matt Latos, and Jordan Zimmerman, all who have been very good this year. The weak link in San Francisco this year is Tim Lincecum. The other weak link in San Francisco this year has been third base. Trey Ford just isn't giving San Francisco what they need offensively. So what do the Yankees do? The Yankees see a San Francisco team that doesn't really have high-end prospects at the moment. The Giants just sent most of their high-end prospects to Seattle in the offseason, the likes of a Jaron Kendall and a Justin Hooper. But they do have the likes of a Tim Lincecum. You acquire Tim Lincecum, you also acquire the ability to trade Tim Lincecum a second time between now and July 31st, Another pitcher I think the Yankees could covet from San Francisco would be Drew Pomeranz. 29-year-old starter turned reliever this year in San Francisco because of the depth they have in the rotation. He's a pending free agent, so again, you kind of take a wait-and-see approach. How does he fare Yankee Stadium? If he fares well, maybe you're able to extend him to a team-friendly deal. And how about 25-year-old first base prospect Guy Edmonds? Edmonds is a smooth-swinging first baseman that looks like a future DH. He's currently blocked by Buster Posey. The Yankees could use him. The Giants might as well get something for him at this point in time. So just like the Rangers were maybe going after the likes of a Francisco and a Carlos Villanueva, I have the Giants going for Francisco, Villanueva, for the likes of a Lincecum, Drew Pomeranz, and Guy Edmonds. I think those are 4 teams that have deals in place, or the potential to have deals in place that make sense for both sides. That said, I think there are 2 teams outside of the box that could make runs at him. They're 2 teams that aren't really making playoff pushes this year. They're 2 teams that don't necessarily maybe have a clear direction at the moment, but I think they have financial flexibility to make runs. And those are the Washington Nationals and the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs are in that interesting position of being a Rule 5 made-up team this season. They went out and signed Javier Baez, but GM Justin Jabs is in a rebuild mode. Acquiring someone like Juan Francisco and maybe being willing to take on the salary you're able to get him on the cheap, it gives you someone to build around. And clearly in a division with everyone under 500, maybe your rebuild is quicker than you expected. I could see the Cubs being a surprise team in the sweepstakes for Juan Francisco. While Francisco and Craig Kimbrell are the 2 players most notably on the trade market as of today, there's another player between now and the trade deadline that's going to get a lot of attention. And that's recently injured Steven Strasburg of the Detroit Tigers. Strasburg, of course, last week tore a ligament in his elbow. He's expected to be out anywhere from 11 to 12 months. He's a free agent to be. Two-time Cy Young winner. He's a former 20-game winner. He's a strikeout king of Major League Pro. What do the Detroit Tigers do? They have a lot of money locked up elsewhere. Josh Johnson's still signed. They're still paying Joe Mauer a ton of money. They've got Joey Votto signed for 4 years after this. Brian Wilson signed for 4 years after this. They still have 2 more years of Ryan Zimmerman, another year of Colton Wong, another year of Brett Anderson. Jesus Montero is a free agent to be. Do they invest big time in Steven Strasburg? You're looking at probably anywhere from $20 to $25 million a year. Is he worth it 100%? Does he fit in the plans, though, with those other players? You're not going to be able to trade a 34-year-old Josh Johnson signed at $31 million a year with vesting options for 20 years, 2022, 2023. But also, are you going to get good offers for Steven Strasburg at this point in time? Are teams going to be willing to offer top dollar for a player who's out for the rest of the season and who isn't signed for next season? It gives that interesting approach where there's really 3 options at this point. You re-sign him and you figure the rest of your plan out later. You trade him, hoping to get top value, or do you wait it out? You offer him maybe a qualifying offer, you get your compensation pick, and you move on from there. It's an interesting position. Teams that could be after Steven Strasburg, well, that's anyone. Who has the ammo at the top? You're looking at a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks. Could they make a run? Sure. Does it make sense? Not really. A team like the Houston Astros, they've stockpiled with prospects left and right. Does adding Strasburg today make them better next year? Are they immediately a threat? Yes. But are they willing to give up all those pieces? I say no. Cleveland Indians. Division trade, you have the number 1 pitching prospect in Rod Swift. If Strasburg were signed for next season and not hurt, yeah, that's a player you'd maybe build a deal around, but not now. Again, maybe the Mariners make a run there instead of Juan Francisco. A team that I think I'd have my eyes on would be the Cincinnati Reds. Injuries have devastated the Reds this season. Everyone on the Reds has been hurt. You've had the likes of Brian Mattis has been out, Chris Sale's been out, Augusto Garcia has been out, Albert Suarez has been out, Dustin Pedroia has been hurt. it's been a disaster for the Reds. But you have top prospects still. You have Bill Harrison, Sergio Pagan, Brad Smith. I don't expect Colby Allard to be obviously moved anywhere. But they're a team that maybe makes a run. The team that I would bet money on, though, if Strasburg is moved, would be the St. Louis Cardinals. Loaded with high-end pitching prospects, Dave Smith, LeBlanc. You have some high-end outfield prospects, the recently drafted Chad Ricks. You have Randy Mailey. A team and a GM that are never afraid to make a move. And in a division that, again, just is waiting for a team to take over. While Strasburg doesn't help them this year, if you pair Strasburg with Clayton Kershaw, the Cardinals become an immense favorite in the Central and potentially in the National League. So they're a team to watch there. Beyond that, a question that many of you sent my way earlier today was dealing with another team that is kind of taken over Major League Baseball this year by storm, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles sit at a league best 51-18. They have an 8.5 game lead on the Toronto Blue Jays. They have added another win today against the Boston Red Sox, winning 8-2. Juan Romero goes to 4-4. Trevor Bauer 3-7. You have the pitching hot start of Steve White and Brady Aiken. Lucio Cruzado right behind them makes a formidable 1-2-3 in the rotation. The back end of the bullpen with Arodys, Vizcaino, and Gabriel Flores has been dominant. You have a lineup featuring the likes of a Travis Jankowski at the top, who gets on base and just a havoc running the bases. Middle of the order in Tyler Townsend and Rob Sedgidin, power. Bottom of the order, Tommy Joseph, Michael Antonio, offer again more power. People are asking, are they for real? It's hard not to say yes. The lineup maybe has some holes. They're 11th in the American League in on-base percentage, 8th in slugging percentage, but their third run scored. They don't walk, but they're scoring runs. You pair that with the fact that they lead the American League in earned run average, starters ERA, bullpen ERA. They have the best defense in the American League. Everything they do keeps on winning. A team like the Toronto Blue Jays has added pitching depth. The likes of Michael Pineda, who they acquired recently. They acquired, obviously, David Price and Yanez from the Oakland A's. But they're still a team that sits 10th in American League batting average, 7th in on-base percentage. They're 8th in runs scored. They have the bottom of an order with a 216 hitting Jacob Julius, a 191 hitting Yadier Molina, and Tyler Moore, the DH, hitting 9th with a batting average of 196. So while Bryce Harper and JD Martinez are obviously having strong all-star level seasons at the top of the order, the rest of the order is a mess. And I worry the expectations of an Andres Yanez are overblown. While he had a great start to his career in Oakland, he had a 2015 season in which he hit 322 and an on-base percentage of 388. And he followed that up with another 382 on-base percentage in 2016. His 2017 took a step backwards, and his 2018 has taken a step backwards. I don't necessarily believe he's the same player he was 2 or 3 years ago. I think he's an upgrade, but I'm not sure he's a difference maker. And while that rotation is as strong as anyone in baseball, to say they're now going to overtake an Oriole team that has built that lead and continues to be dominant on the mound, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Baltimore Orioles are not only for real, but I think they're going to continue just to run away with the division. You look at something that's maybe not being discussed enough at this point. It's Ash Russell, a top prospect pitcher who's out or been out for most of the season, but he's due back come September. He gives them flexibility. Whether that means trading him between now and the deadline, which I don't expect, or you bring him in, you throw him maybe in the back of the rotation, hope he can make a transition of the bullpen come playoff time. I just think he could be a difference maker for a team that has proven itself to be the best in the American League so far and the best in baseball. And I, again, just don't see why that won't continue. Recently, we've had another trade rumor circulating in the American League, this time in the American League West, where the Houston Astros are reportedly close to a deal with a team within the division. While it's been weeded out that it's likely not the Oakland A's simply because of the positions both the A's and Astros are in, it's unclear whether it's the Angels, the Mariners, the Rangers who are striking a deal with the Astros at this point in time. It's also unclear who this player the Astros are dealing are. There's been some speculation that it was the likes of a Pat Crosby, a pitcher who has had success against the Angels and Mariners in the past. He's a pitcher with one of the league's best changeups, but he's never put it all together in Houston. Could a team like the Angels, who have a bottom-of-the-rotation disaster recently, could they be making a run? Or are they waiting the likes of a Chris Archer return, a promotion of Kyle Funkhauser, who had a start a week or so ago and potentially could be coming back in the next week or two? Could it be the likes of a Xiaoxing Feng, who's coming off of another solid outing yesterday in the 2-1 loss to the Oakland A's? Feng is 3-3 with an ERA under 3. The concern there is he's only really capable of pitching 5 to 6 innings per start. You look at the Seattle Mariners, I don't necessarily believe they have a need for him. Does Texas have a need for Feng? I could see it, but I think the player more likely that both, or all three, the Angels, the Mariners, and Rangers could be coveting is reliever Kershawn Hawley. Hawley's pitched in 38 1/3 innings and has an ERA of 1.41. He's a quality arm that can give you an inning to an inning and 2/3, maybe 2 innings. He's 26 years old, but he's not really a setup or closer type. If he's not going to be a closer or setup guy, isn't now the proper time for Houston really to be moving him? Wouldn't it make sense for a playoff team to go after and acquire a player like Hawley, who maybe doesn't command the give back that the Craig Kimbrells of the world or the Angels had reportedly been shopping earlier, Kenley Jansen's of the world? Those guys are going to acquire a lot. Hawley, you could probably get for a mid-tier prospect. You add him to your bullpen, and you've just upgraded your bullpen tremendously. So he's the guy I'd have my eye on if I'm looking to see what the Houston Astros are up to between now and the end of the season. As far as the National League goes, one area that has been of discussion recently has been the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers are 31-36, and they lead the division. The division's a mess. The Reds, disasters, injuries, 12 games under 500, they're 3.5 out. Anything is possible right now in that division. The Cubs obviously aren't going to make a run at it, despite being 5.5 out. Even though I still believe Francisco's an option, I think Justin Jabs is going to continue with the rebuild. But if I'm the Reds, I'm the Pirates, I'm the Cardinals, I'm the Brewers, you're a trade away. You're a trade away from potentially getting hot, getting to a couple games over 500, and you can win that division. It'll be interesting. National League. You'll take a look up into the East. Today's game, the Mets and the Braves. Mets 5-2 winners over the Braves, scored 2 in the ninth to extend the lead. Alberto Vega moves to 5-3. Carter Capps falls to 2-5. Josh Wilcox his 20th homer. Greg Bird his 9th for the Braves. The Braves today came out and reportedly made it known that they're looking for an upgrade either at middle infield or catcher. Well, the catcher market doesn't appear strong at the moment. You're going to hear it here first, where if I'm the Braves and I'm Brenton, where am I looking? I'm going to Arizona, and I'm going to Kyle Skipworth. Skipworth isn't anything special, but he's a productive addition to a team. He's hitting .273 and on base at .319, a slugging percentage of .384. You're looking at a Diamondbacks team that has no need to keep him long term, that is. He signed for $2.3 million this year, but arbitration eligible next season at $7.5 million. Why would I not make a run at him if I'm Brenton? If I need a catcher, and I'm not looking to give up a ton, Kyle Skipworth's a perfect addition to that team. While the Mets and the Braves are obviously worthy of the attention, 5 straight playoff appearances for the Mets, the Braves are there every single year. Can we take a second and appreciate the hottest team in baseball? The Miami Marlins, winners of 8 straight. The Marlins, I don't think anyone saw this coming, let alone anyone within the league, anyone outside the league. Marlins currently tied at 2, by the way, top of the 13th inning against the San Francisco Giants. We had a head to the bottom of the 13th, waiting to see who comes out to pitch for the San Francisco Giants. We'll take a look back at that in a little bit. But can the Marlins keep this up? You have a top of a rotation, a pair in Lance McCullers, 8-4, 2.75 ERA. Walker Buehler, 6-2, 2.07 ERA. But the big difference the last week or so, how about their high-priced free agent this offseason, Miguel Cabrera? Cabrera has an on-base percentage this month of .400. Can the Marlins, keep it up? It's tough to say. They're still tied for 7th in the National League in runs scored. They've given up the 11th most hits in the National League. They're among the most walks allowed team in baseball. They've forced the fewest strikeouts in the league. We're going to learn a lot about the Marlins coming up. After they finish this series against San Francisco, they begin a 9-game road trip. They head to Baltimore. They head back to San Francisco. They head to Colorado. We're going to learn a lot about this Marlins team over the next 2 weeks. That, by the way, is now headed to the bottom of the 14th inning, still 2-2. Another area that has been talked about frequently here in the last week or so has been regarding the recently completed draft. We had a lot going on with who deserved to be the top pick, who's going to make the biggest impact moving forward. But a question I was asked by several of you had to do with which recently drafted player will have the most anticipated minor league debut and season this year. While I think there are quite a few options, there are a few players that stood out to me. The first player, of course, was the number 1 pick, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Consensus is that he possesses just a good overall complexion. He's got a totally superior bat. He has tremendous raw power. He was the first pick for a reason. He's in starting Scottsdale for the Diamondbacks. When I see Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I see the likes of an Angels Caleb Coward. He's going to be a middle-of-the-order bat, a bat and a player that can contend for batting titles and home run titles. He's going to be a difference maker in Arizona. I'm fascinated to see how he's going to begin his career. Elsewhere in the National League West, a player that I'm going to be tremendously interested in seeing how they perform early on is the San Francisco Giants' Jared Stevens. Scouts were all over the place with Stevens heading into the draft and remain with some mixed feelings on his abilities. Some scouts believe Stevens is one of the elite power bats in all of the recently drafted players. Others believe it's more league average type. He's a 6-foot, 175-pound shortstop today. There's some questions whether he's going to stick it short, maybe make a transition to second or third. He's lightning quick. The tools are there, but are they there to the extent some believe? It'll be interesting to see how he does early on in his minor league career. 2 other players that have interest for me are the 8th overall pick, the Pirates' Brandon Gill. A smooth-hitting third baseman with a rocket arm. Gill hit .505 out of Arborview High School in Las Vegas with 12 homers and just 91 at-bats. Gill isn't the most patient hitter at the plate. That could plague him both at the minor league and major league level. But he's a threat every time he swings the bat. He's known for his work ethic. He's a former 2-sport star worth focusing on in Bradenton for the Pirates in the Gulf Coast League. While there are a lot of pitchers that grabbed attention in the draft, the first round included the likes of Drew Lock, Brody Matthews, and Dane Greer. But the pitcher I'm going to be focused on early here the rest of the way was the second-round pick, 39th overall, by the Nationals, 20-year-old Elijah Holyfield. Holyfield, a pitcher out of St. John's University, is perhaps the most advanced pitcher, the most ready pitcher of anyone in the draft. He doesn't possess the high-end potential of the likes of a Locke, Matthews, or Greer, but he's ready. Could he make a quick ascension from the low-level minor leagues to maybe Double-A by the end of the season? Again, he's just 20 years old, and there is some concern about his control. But there's no questioning his abilities today. He should have a quick move through a rookie league. I'm going to be fascinated by what he does the rest of the way. Checking in on the day's scores, we have finals in most places. The Royals took down the Reds 5-1. Jordan Cole picked up his 5th win of the year. Archie Bradley falls to 3-6. Justin Masterson and the Tribe shut out the White Sox 4-0. Masterson moves to 4-6. The Detroit Tigers took down the Minnesota Twins 8-5. 2 homers for Gary Copeland, well on his way to another starting role in the American League All-Star lineup. Chuck Baez got the win as the Yankees shut out the Nationals. In a high-scoring 9-4 win, the Seattle Mariners, Tawan Walker moved to 6-1 as they take down the Angels. Michael Fulmer, another disappointing start from the Angels. The Toronto Blue Jays more than double up the Tampa Bay Rays 10-4. Javi Guerra 3-0. Earlier today, the Baltimore Orioles beat the Boston Red Sox 8-2. In the National League, the Rangers beat the Dodgers 3-1. Trevor Cahill 9-2 on the year. Ben Rowan, his 27th save. He continues to have a monster year at the back of the Rangers bullpen. Jonathan Arias and the Padres take down the St. Louis Cardinals 8-5. Houston Street falls to 1-9 on the season. The Miami Marlins make it 9 in a row with a 3-2 win in 14 innings. The Marlins, 9 in a row. The Colorado Rockies, 9-2 winners. Orlando Garcia beats the Phillies' Brad Peacock. 2 homers for Jock Peterson. Orlando Garcia got his first homer of the year. Elsewhere in extra innings, the Pittsburgh Pirates, 5-4 winners over the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Milwaukee Brewers, 8-1 winners over the Chicago Cubs. Madison Bumgarner moves to 6-2. Mark Sorensen to 2-7. And then earlier in the day, of course, the Mets took down the Braves 5-2. We have 1 game remaining on the day, and that is the 4-4 tie currently in the top of the 12th between the Houston Astros and the Oakland A's. As we get closer to the All-Star game, it's worth taking a quick look at our balloting so far. You have what appear to be easy decisions in certain positions. Gary Sanchez should be your American League starter at catcher. Gary Copeland should be your first baseman starter at catcher. There are also positions in the National League where Pardo of the Giants should be the catcher for the National League. I would expect the likes of a Giancarlo Stanton to be a starting outfielder for the National League. A Matt Den-Decker, likely a starting outfielder for the National League. Mark Baker, perhaps a easy guess as a starting outfielder for the American League. The All-Star Game, of course, takes place next month in Washington, Nationals Park. The Nationals are hosting that game. It'll be interesting to see the balloting process here on out. Bottom 12 for Krishan Hawley comes in here for the Houston Astros. The talked about relief pitcher who could be on the move, whether it be Texas, whether it be Seattle, whether it be Los Angeles. That will be to be determined, as I can no longer speak, and I think that's telling us that tonight's episode needs to come to an end. Much appreciated those that submitted questions for tonight. I look forward to potentially doing this again with you all very soon. Thank you as always, and until next time, keep enjoying Major League Pro Happy Hour. Thank you, and have a good night.